Thanks, JJ, and it's really great to see so many people. It's even a little overwhelming after so long being cooped up. But so I'd like to say just a few words about this Climate Grand Challenges initiative, and very simply, this is a whole of MIT effort to develop solutions to some of the tough climate-related problems that are facing the world in time to make a difference. So last April, after an internal competition that drew on a really quite substantial fraction of the whole MIT research community, we announced the first 5 flagship research projects coming out of this initiative. We've jump-started these projects with MIT funds and resources, but this is, as we'll see, impact-oriented research, and we're eager to work with leaders in every sector, in industry and finance and philanthropy and government, to accelerate this work and, if it's successful, to translate it into practical solutions at scale. JJ mentioned that you're hearing about 4 of the 5 flagship projects today. So here, I just want to give an overview of the initiative and try to put it in context. And I should begin by saying that Climate Grand Challenges is just one of the one part of the climate and sustainability portfolio here at the Institute. Like many other universities, MIT has a climate action plan. Some of our individual schools have climate action plans, but the institute level plan has 3 areas of focus. If I can try to get this, can we move it forward? This doesn't seem to be.
The green button at the top.
Yeah, I'm using the green. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So the Institute plan has 3 areas of focus. One is to do what we can as quickly as we can do it with the tools that we already have. The second focus is to focus on breakthroughs, new tools, the development of new tools. And the third focus, obviously, for us as an educational institution, is to concentrate on educating the next generation of people working in this area. So I'm going to focus on the second of these, and there are a number of different elements to this effort. We have the Future Energy Systems Center at MIT, which may already be on the program. We have the Climate and Sustainability Consortium, which is a vehicle for interacting with industry leaders. We have the engine that helps with translation of so-called tough tech. And we have Climate Grand Challenges, and that's the one that I want to focus on. The motivation for this is pretty straightforward. We know that if the world is going to get to net zero emissions later this century in ways that are both affordable and equitable, we're a long way from having all of the solutions that we need. Of course, we need to do as much as we can with the tools that we do have. But by some estimates, half of the carbon emission reductions that will be needed to get to net zero emissions by mid-century are going to require technologies that we don't now have in hand. And I don't think that's a surprising statement, certainly not for most of the people in this room, but it isn't what we've been told by some prominent climate experts, that we do have everything that's needed to address the climate emergency, and that the only thing we lack is the political will to act. But really, that isn't the case. It's not to take anything away from the progress that has been made, that is being made. It's a very significant achievement, for example, that we've seen such deep reductions in the cost of solar and wind systems over the last 10 years. Obviously, that's good for low-carbon electricity, and also, without it, I think the politics of climate change may well have continued to be close to impossible. But those advances won't help us with the other problems that are also essential to solve, such as low-carbon steel and cement manufacturing, low-carbon long-distance marine and air transportation, low-carbon agriculture, and on and on. And there's no pathway of incremental improvements to existing technologies that will get us to the outcomes that we need in those areas. And then there's the adaptation challenge. We don't yet have, by any means, all of the solutions that will be needed to enable different societies to adapt to the climate-related changes that are inevitable, even if the world does manage to achieve net zero emissions by mid-century, and of course will be much more of a threat if we don't. And closely related to the adaptation challenge is what I think of as the fairness challenge. We know that the poor will bear most of the burden of climate change. The poor countries will be much more affected than the rich ones, and in the rich ones, the poor people will be disproportionately affected. In a problem like this, that's as complicated as this is, there will always be winners and losers. But unless climate policies embody the principle of fairness at the community level, at the national level, and at the international level, we're not going to succeed. So at MIT, what we said was, in addition to working on technology and policy implementations that are already within sight, let's engage the MIT research community on some of these hard, unsolved problems. Problems which, if they could be solved, would really move the needle on the world's climate response. And because this is MIT, let's focus on solutions that require the application of forefront natural science, forefront social science, and cutting-edge technology. In other words, we said, let's swing for the fences, or try to swing for the fences, in areas where MIT has a comparative advantage. And then, let's try to combine the creativity and the ambition of our research community here with the know-how and the financial resources of industrial, financial, and government partners to deliver game-changing advances in time to make a difference. So there are precedents for this. And one is the MIT research effort in nuclear fusion. Several years ago, a group of faculty and students in the Nuclear Science and Engineering Department and the Plasma Science and Fusion Center said, not for the first time, by the way, look, nuclear fusion clearly isn't on track to help with the problem of climate emission reduction. The program is just too big, too slow. But then they said, well, maybe there's a different technical approach that can get us there quicker and at lower cost by taking advantage of new developments in the field of high-temperature superconductivity, enabling much smaller magnets and therefore much smaller reactors. We can still draw on decades of government research, they said, but there's a chance that we could go much faster. And a group of students, led by two faculty colleagues in nuclear science and engineering, developed this concept, which they called SPARK. That work, by the way, was supported by an enlightened local philanthropist. And by the way, this was really key because the government was just not interested in supporting this work. As a matter of fact, the government had just cut much of the funding to MIT in the fusion area in order to pay for the US contribution to ITER, the International Fusion Experiment in the south of France. So this actually was quite literally an example of necessity being the mother of invention. And in this case, the invention, SPARK, was successful in attracting private capital to launch Commonwealth Fusion Systems, a startup which, with ongoing research support from the Plasma Science and Fusion Center in the Nuclear Department, plans to have the world's first net energy fusion device by 2025, a 200 megawatt pilot plant 5 years later, and the first commercially available system 5 years after that. We'll see whether they can meet that schedule. This is really, it's hard, and it may well not succeed. But if it does succeed, or if one of the score or more other fusion startups succeeds, this may be a game changer for climate because there are very few other affordable low-carbon options for firm power generation. And it's a big change from how people were thinking until recently, very recently, about fusion as that energy option that's 40 years in the future and always will be. And it's rooted in part in work done in labs and in classrooms at MIT and other universities. And it's an example of the sort of transformational advance that we're talking about, and Climate Grand Challenges is designed to focus the MIT community on others. So there are 3 goals. The first one I've already mentioned. The second goal is for this to be a whole of MIT effort. In fact, solving these kinds of problems requires a synthesis of scientific, social scientific, and humanistic knowledge, because both the problems and the solutions, more often than not, have to do with how actual people live and work. So the research we do must similarly involve culture and politics and ethics and history and economics, as well as science and technology. And the third goal is accelerating the implementation of these solutions may well be the hardest of the 3. So we started with an open call to all MIT PIs. The call activated almost 100 teams from across the institute, involving nearly 400 faculty members and senior researchers, representing 90% of all MIT departments. After initial winnowing, 27 of these teams were selected or invited into the next round. The 27 were in 4 broad areas: equity and fairness in climate solutions, decarbonizing complex industries and processes, removing, managing, and storing greenhouse gases, and planning and preparing for the impacts of climate change. This obviously doesn't cover the whole range of needs by any means, but it does reflect a judgment that was made here as part of this process as to where MIT research capabilities could be deployed most effectively today to achieve this special category of novel and potentially game-changing advances. Each of the finalists was given $100K and 5 months to develop comprehensive research and innovation plans. And then, after a really quite rigorous review process that involved about 70 international experts, people from outside MIT, we selected 5 of these as flagship projects. And you are hearing about 4 of these today, and these projects are launching now. In the best case, they'll create options for action, climate action, that will be new to the world and will deliver beneficial impacts. But in any case, they will accelerate our movement, MIT's movement, into important new fields of research and innovation where we judge that the Institute has the ability to do good work. By the way, there are also many exciting new initiatives among the 22 that didn't make it into the flagship group, and almost all of those are also being taken forward by their teams anyway. And in the long run, it may be that that is an even more consequential result of this Climate Grand Challenges process. Now, I just want to make a few final comments here. The first point that I would make is that these are not modest goals. You know, revolutionizing agriculture, reinventing climate adaptation, democratizing climate models using 21st century computational tools, machine learning, AI, and so on, and decarbonizing enormous manufacturing industries. We don't know whether these projects will succeed in time to make a difference. But what we do know is that in order to be successful, we need partners, entrepreneurs, financiers, philanthropists, companies, community leaders, policymakers. We need partners in this research and in developing the products and the processes and the services that may flow from them, so that there's a possibility, at least, of accelerating the whole cycle of activities that are needed to implement solutions at scale. So one message is to prospective partners, maybe some of the people in this room. We need your know-how. We need your resources. The second message is to others like us, like MIT. Obviously, this problem is much bigger than can be addressed by any single university effort. Every research institution with relevant skills and creativity needs to put its shoulder to the wheel. And there's nothing unique about MIT in this regard. Other universities have different strengths from ours, and the climate-related problems in their communities and their societies are often very different from the ones we see at our front door, so to speak. So the second message to our colleagues around the world in research institutions is please consider doing something similar if you haven't already done so. And just one final point, Climate Grand Challenges is not a substitute for, but rather to augment the existing research portfolio at MIT. In MIT, our energy initiative, in the departments of Earth, atmospheric and planetary sciences, civil environmental engineering, in the Sloan School, in JPAL, in the School of Architecture and Planning, the Environmental Solutions Initiative. That's just an enormous array of activity going on. The idea here is to build on that foundation by creating a few new spires of research and innovation, each focused on a grand challenge problem and its implementation. We're doing it because it's what we expect of ourselves. It's definitely what our students expect of us. In fact, they've repeatedly made clear that they see no greater priority than to work on this problem, and that MIT should be raising its game. And in my experience, MIT students are energized not by doom and gloom, but by engineering, by adventure, by doing new things, and by finding new solutions to problems. And so by doing this, we're really helping ourselves, because it helps to make us attractive to the people we want to be here at this institution, the students and the faculty who want to be at the forefront of their fields, the people who can see around corners. So thank you. I think we are going to break now for networking.
That's right. So thank you very much, Professor Lester.